I think instead that it actually diminishes your soul in a certain sense.
Diminishes.
And I'm going to keep on saying,
you heard that? Your soul is diminished, Walter. There's like nothing left at this point. I don't know what happened. And I don't agree with that either. Look, just because you smoke weed doesn't make you a soulless person.
I'm running on empty.
Hello, my name is Dwight Gillespie, and this is Trash TV Review, where we review
trash motherfucking TV.
That's us. That's what we do. And it's Dwight Gillespie. That's Walter over there. And today we're going to do, we believe over here that everything is trash today. So we can review absolutely everything. We do a lot of police videos. We were doing a lot of Maury and everything, which I really like. I think Walter liked it too, but they don't seem to get much traction. Shit like this seems to get some more traction. And this is Charlie Kirk, who I watch, I follow. Like, I don't believe in everything he does or anything like that, but I'm a fairly conservative guy. But this one is actually something that Walter and I kind of disagreed with. He's going to talk about marijuana. And that is a subject near and dear to the hearts of Walter and myself. I don't smoke personally. I have been in recovery for almost 12 years now. Walter, not so much. Walter likes to smoke, and that's okay, and we'll get into that too. I'm not a person I'm not one of those anti-drug zealots. Just because I don't do drugs doesn't mean that I I'm like that. I understand, But this is a short video. We're just going to do this real quick. It's 2.5 or almost 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And we'll talk what.
No, it's really short.
Yeah, it is. I picked it because it was short. It's one of his shorter ones. He cuts up his videos much like we do. So, yeah. So without any further ado, I bring you Charlie Kirk on why he hates marijuana. So I think that's it anyway.
I'm originally from California, so don't hate me too much. But
yeah.
I'm a very proud conservative.
He got crickets on that.
So what would be
he really does look like Steve Urkel with a little goatee, and nothing for nothing,
He's like the in-between transition from Steve Urkel to Stefan Urkel.
Yeah.
Legalization of marijuana.
how much time you got? So, yeah, everything from it's a false promise of liberty. So I used to be kind of...
and I don't even know what that means, a false promise of liberty. I don't think marijuana promised anybody liberty at all. I think some people just use it just because they like to, they like to relax. They like to get high once in a while. And again, I remember growing up as a kid and my father used to catch my brother and I smoking and everything. And I remember when my father was yelling at my brother and, why do you smoke this shit? And my father was a drinker, like a big drinker, Somebody saying alcoholic. But... and he would come home from work and he would have, 2 or 3 drinks at least. And he was an angry, frustrated. And my brother told him, if you came home and smoked a couple joints instead of hit the liquor, you probably wouldn't be as pissed off all the time. And my father was. The man was pissed off all the time, like all the time. And he was a violent guy. And alcohol does that, by the way. And I think anybody who, if you're going to equate the two, alcohol is a far worse, and I don't care what anybody says, it is a far worse drug than any other drug out there, including heroin, cocaine, all of it. Like, there is no worse drug than alcohol, in my estimation. You go into a battered woman's shelter, you go into a battered family, whatever. What was he smoking weed or was he drunk when he beat the shit out of you and the kids? He was drunk. Like, almost invariably, he was drunk. Right, so let's
a pothead will empty your fridge.
Yeah, baby, man, I ordered the pizza yesterday. It's your turn.
He won't leave you anything. Speaking from experience.
Yeah.
Because I was in high school and I used to say, oh yeah, people used to do weed, like whatever. First of all, it makes the places that you live unenjoyable for almost all people.
I don't understand why.
I'll prove it to you. So
prove it. And you're going to prove it, and I listened to it this far, and I absolutely disagree on this point.
Denver, Vegas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, when weed is legalized, it becomes a messier, dirtier, just objectively unpleasant place to live.
See, that's an unfair characterization because you're taking it out of context. It's like saying that the pay gap, right? And so there's a pay gap between men and women, and without giving it any context at all, yes, these places seemed to get dirtier when weed was legalized. But again, there were a lot of other factors that came into play. When did LA and San Francisco and everything really take a nosedive? It's kind of like when we started defunding police, when we were allowing riots to run rampant in the streets. It had a lot more to do with that shit than it did with the legalization of marijuana.
Yeah, the potheads, they're going to clean up the city. It just takes them a little while. We're getting there. We're getting there.
You could go into San Francisco. San Francisco's got a much bigger problem with heroin, with methamphetamine, with crack. Like, it's a much bigger problem than it is with weed. If these people were just smoking weed out there, that city wouldn't be in the disaster that it's in. And the fact that they don't know how to deal with addicts is really what is driving all of this. And the fact that they're letting them do these other drugs, like open air drug markets. Look at Kensington, Philadelphia. It's fucking horrible down there. It's a fucking hole. It's got nothing to do with legalizing weed. So I disagree with him. It's totally taken out of context there. And again, I think weed, out of all of those things, and I'm not a weed head. Like, look, Walter likes to enjoy weed. He talks about it. We talk about it all the time here, right? That's his business. But I work with Walter. Like, I've seen it. He gets high, he works. Like, it's his thing, What?
We're productive.
I got to be honest with you. Like, I know potheads. I work with guys like constantly smoking. Walter's not, it doesn't seem that way anyway to me. And we've worked together for a while now, like a year and a half at least, I think we've been working together.
Longer.
And it's just not the case, you catch it, but, look, again, that's your own business. But I think it's a very unfair characterization to blame the demise of these cities strictly on, the coincidence that marijuana was legalized and these cities turned to shit. I think these cities were turning to shit long before pot was legalized, long before that happened.
Has Idaho legalized weed yet? Was there a push for it? Okay, good. Ontario, Oregon has?
Right.
Well, all of it.
It's legal in New York now, but New York, again, New York was turning to shit long before they legalized weed. This city's fucking dying, man. We're dying here. Like, Wall Street isn't half as necessary as it was. Tourism is dying because crime is way up. It has nothing to do with weed being legalized. It has a hell of a lot more to do with the attitude toward the police, with the fact that we have the migrants coming in. What are you going to blame that on weed too? Like, we have an overflow of people that we can't take care of. Our tax base is dropping, and this is what's causing the demise of all these cities. And liberal policies, quite honestly, when you look at all these cities, they all have these ridiculous liberal policies where they're okay with people doing harder drugs. Again, you look at you can see here on YouTube, you can just put the demise of San Francisco in there, and take a look at that. And the people shooting up, and Kensington, Philadelphia is another place. Like, look at these places, and it's the hardcore drugs that are doing it, and the lack of police participation. Oakland's dead. Like, all of these restaurants and diners and fast food joints that are closing their doors all over Oakland. That's got nothing to do with legalizing weed.
Which place has where you could like shoot up?
Well, I know that in British Columbia they had that.
I think it's somewhere in the States too. They have like a safe haven.
Well, I'm sure. I think Seattle has shooting Seattle. Stations and stuff like that. But it's ridiculous. I know here in New York they give you a kit. You can get a kit. It's got a syringe, like clean syringes. It's got Narcan.
It's like going to the dentist.
Pipe. Yeah, right. You get your little toothbrush and shit to leave. Fucking ridiculous. Like, what do you think? How do you not see the demise of your civilization? And I tell people, this is like when counterculture becomes culture, right? Like, people listen to Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, and all that shit. It sounded so cool, right? That's becoming culture. And so think about this, like, counterculture now is like not shooting dope. That's the counterculture now. Charlie Kirk is counterculture. Like, that's insane. Like, all of this is insane. But again, it doesn't prop up his point or buoy his point at all. I don't know.
It has, I'm sure. And so that's number one. Number two, I think that we as conservatives kind of get in a trap here, right? They're like, well, if we really believe in limited government, then why are we outlawing weed? This is a libertarian argument, right? We should make stances very clearly of what is virtuous and what is good, and we should try to say our laws should, in the best case, reflect that. Now, do you want to have a conversation around locking somebody up for 20 years because they have weed? Like, that's a totally separate conversation. But
it's not, though. It's not. I don't think it is, because if it's illegal, it's illegal.
I was going to say, so is he like criminalizing it,
right,
and then not criminalizing it
right
at the same time?
Or I guess with like they used to do with a bench warrant, like it was nothing. It was you get a ticket for.
They're going to catch you. They're going to bring you in and be like, nah, I'm just joking.
Yeah,
get the fuck out of here.
But I knew a lot of guys from back in the day. I knew a guy, Paulie. He did 25 years for trafficking, and granted, he was trafficking a lot of weight, but
but it was weed.
It's weed. It was weed. Yeah.
Every promise the weed lobby made in Denver, not every promise, but the top 5 were actually totally wrong. For example,
like
they
what?
said marijuana usage rates will go down if you legalize it. They've gone up. They said that young
well,
people.
I don't know how that would happen.
Weed is awesome.
There are more young people going into the ICU that are using weed than ever before in Colorado and in Denver. And it's just,
how do you go to the ICU for using weed? How does that happen?
Well, they were probably doing something retarded.
Like what?
It wasn't the weed. It was probably just them
Yeah,
smoking and be like,
listen,
let's do
when I was a
this.
kid, I smoked a lot of weed as a kid. I never I never heard of anybody like overdosing from weed.
No,
I guess if you get some really, really whacked out, like some good chronic, you get fucking hallucinations and shit.
I think what happens is people just get high and do stupid shit.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the weed.
My argument always comes back, and I don't know if I'm a libertarian. I'm a fairly conservative guy. Not across the board.
I'm untitled. I'm unknown.
Well, there's things that he believes in that I don't. Like I don't give a shit about gay marriage or anything like that. Let people be who they want to be. Maybe I am more of a libertarian than anything, but I'm a realist as well. And again, I look at this and I say, you got if alcohol is legal, like to me, that's the worst drug there is. And if that's going to be your mark, like you say, well, we're going to do this for the good of society, get rid of weed. Really? That's going to be your marker? Get rid of alcohol. And they tried that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, man. And again, you want to take power away from drug dealers. How did they take power away from the mafia? The prohibition of alcohol made the mafia. It made the mafia.
Yeah.
Like if there was never prohibition, the mafia may not have been what it was. So it was the first narcotic that the mafia had dealt in, and then heroin, cocaine, all of these things, like you can't stop it. And trying to is folly, like this, and the whole idea that weed is going to destroy society. It all destroys it, Anyway,
this is also a question, and you see this all across the mountain, the Mountain West. As weed gets legalized, does crime go up? And the answer is yes.
Why?
Crime does go up. And good luck trying to figure out the driving under the influence thing. I think it's this false sense of liberty where we as conservatives think like, yeah, we're going to be more free because we deregulate this one thing. And I'll just say this, it's a total blanket statement, and I might offend somebody, I really don't care, and Joe Rogan will totally disagree with me. I think weed is really bad for people. I think weed makes you lazier. I think that it makes you...
But I agree with this. But no more so than alcohol. I think alcohol is worse because, weed makes you lazy. And we have a generation of lazy people coming up. It just is.
Well, personally, I think weed just enhances whatever you are.
But I'm going to go back to my original argument when it comes to the destruction of the cities. Now, you're taking this and say, weed does this. Maybe there's some merit to that. But I work with young people who are they don't leave the house. I think you can blame that as much, if not more, on social media. As much, like when I was a kid, my mother would see it. If it was today's a beautiful day. We're in New York. It's beautiful today, right? Let me tell you, if it was a Saturday morning, right, and we're sitting around watching cartoons as a kid. I mean, my mother did it because she didn't like us being around. She didn't really care for us very much, but she's like, get the fuck out of the house. Like, you're not allowed to hang in the house. These kids did it. Like, they don't go out of the house.
Yeah.
Everything is social media. They don't socialize. They don't do anything. And what you're doing is you're going to blame it on weed, but weed's got nothing to do with it. These kids are like this. These kids are lazy and wanting to do absolutely nothing before they hit the weed.
Mm-hmm.
Weed just comes along and they're like, yeah, all right, it sounds good. It gives me something to do while I'm doing nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Whatever vibe you're in, it's just going to enhance that vibe.
Right, and here we go. But I don't think that you can blame it on weed. I think weed is the byproduct of the laziness, not the other way around. Like one thing, like Michelle Obama, like I think that her Play 360 or Place 60, I think it was, or whatever it was, her initiative to get young people. I thought it was a great initiative for a first lady to take. I really did. Like, to get these kids, because she recognized that these kids, like, America's getting fucking fat and lazy. Obesity is a huge problem in this country.
That's right, I remember that.
Yeah, and what do? Now we're telling kids, oh, it's the weed. No, it ain't the fucking weed. And what do? We tell people, yeah, being fat is fine. No, it's not, though. It's not. You're not healthy at any size, you know? And that all stems from this. And I'm sure Charlie Kirk, of all people, would agree with that. I don't think you can blame weed for kids being lazy. These kids are lazy before they start smoking weed, like you said. This just gives them something to do while they're sitting home doing nothing, you know? And that you can say, but they could just as easily be drinking. If the weed wasn't available, they'd be drinking. And I'd rather, if it's going to be one of the two, at least when people smoke weed, they are less destructive to the rest of society.
Yeah.
You know, the people who drink are far more destructive to the rest of society, you know? And he mentioned briefly about, you know, how do you do a DUI check for weed? It's very hard. You know, you don't do a breathalyzer for it, you know? But I tell you this,
I'd imagine you could find testing for reflexes and whatnot that you're under an influence of something.
But it's I submit that somebody who's drunk is still a more dangerous driver than somebody who's high.
Oh, I agree, yeah.
Somebody who's high is generally way overcautious and shit like that, you know?
I gotta stay within these lines, man.
Yeah.
I can't.
And I'm not saying, and yeah, I'm sure, you know, you could pull up places where, you know, kids, they smoke some of that really good shit. And just like we were talking about smoking, like, I hate the smell. I don't like the smell of it. You go to Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and you can't even drive on the BQE through Williamsburg, Brooklyn with your fucking windows down without smelling that shit.
I don't know
right?
if it's jealousy that I might get aggravated if I smell it and I don't have it. Yeah. It's like Scooby-Doo. All of a sudden I smell it and then like the aroma.
Scooby-Doo, yeah. I told you before, when we went to California, Walter's like, I found a place, there's a dispensary right over here. And he like had it bookmarked on his fucking
We had to
Google
go
Maps.
on the highway, take a U-turn, dip
Make
under
a
the
left,
highway.
Make a left. I'm like, have you been here before? What? Nah, I've never been to California. Make a left.
I wish I remember the place. Good service.
Yeah. You probably look it up. It was right outside Encinitas, I think it was. Yeah.
Good place.
Anyway.
Treat you like a king.
Yeah. King for a day.
A less whole human being. Now, medically, maybe it could work in certain circumstances. I will yield
it
that.
Does.
It's probably better than some of the pharmaceutical stuff. I think those
like
are
heroin too, you know, but you know,
as a lifestyle drug.
Overall?
No, don't expect me to just give my platform of public policy recommendations and cultural recommendations and be like, oh yeah, you could be a great person and also do weed every single day. No, I actually don't think that's your greatest use of your time.
No,
your energy.
neither do I.
I think instead that it actually diminishes your soul in a certain sense.
Diminishes.
And I'm going to keep on saying,
heard that? Your soul is diminished, Walter. There's like nothing left at this point. I don't know what happened. And I don't agree with that either. Look, just because you smoke weed doesn't make you a soulless person.
I'm running on empty.
Yeah. Listen, you talk to meth heads and crackheads. Those are that shit takes your soul, man. Heroin too. Like, I was a heroin addict, man. Heroin took my fucking soul. Heroin robbed me of everything, man. Everything.
Yes. Do you have a follow-up question or thought? Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay.
And that's that. And that's our view on that. And I disagree with Charlie Kirk on this one. I'm not against having it legalized. I think, the idea that you can stop the flow was ridiculous. People die trying to keep pot out of the country. I also think that it's a great cash crop for the U.S. The only thing that we produce anymore, right? They shut down manufacturing in the United States, which is just ridiculous. I'm talking to an environmentalist and telling me what a great job they're doing, right? And I'm like, dude, you cause more pollution than you stop. Well, how do you figure we shut these? The camera's moving. Yeah. Be careful there. Well, people see me jumping. They think I'm doing this shit. And and I said, what do you think? You think these big corporations are just, you shut them down in Wisconsin or whatever, and that they're just like, they're never going to, produce their fucking hats or sneakers or whatever the fuck? No, they go overseas. to China or to Afghanistan or any of these other places, Pakistan, and they build factories in countries that have far less regulations than the United States, pollute far more. They dump their shit into the water. These countries don't give a fuck, right? Mexico, all of these places, Guatemala, they build up their factories, and that's where they go. And you put good Americans out of good jobs, right? Look at the auto industry, right? We had NAFTA, right? Okay, I'm a union man. Like I'm a union man. Local 1103, local 1105, local 1106. Those were my locals when I was with Verizon. You know, proud union man. And what did those incentives do? Right? Those initiatives killed the unions. The jobs went overseas. The pollution was increased tenfold, right? And you blame things that weren't really the cause. And this, we have a crop that we can produce here in the U.S., and it's a viable product. And the weed coming out of California and Hawaii, and even in some of the southern states, the way they do it, it's just as good as any weed you're going to get. When I was a kid, Colombian Gold was the shit. Like, that's what you wanted, right? But the weed we produce right here in the U.S. is just as good as any weed you're going to get anywhere else. And I don't see any difference between producing high grade weed and high grade wine. Wineries built Napa Valley, California, right? New York State now, it's a huge industry here in the state of New York. Wineries, you know? Nobody says, people like Charlie, I bet he likes a nice glass of wine, right? I don't drink wine either. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke weed. I don't do no mood or mind altering substances. It's the way I live my life. But I'm not against it. I'm not opposed to it. And I don't live in a world where that shit shouldn't exist, you know? It's not up to me to put my standards and ideals. It didn't work for me, but I know some people who use that. You know, they can do a little, and it's okay. For me, the saying "one is too many and 1,000 is never enough" comes into play. Anyway, that's it. That's the whole thing. Walter, thank you for being honest and hi. Anyway, have a great day. If you like the video, please hit the subscribe, hit the like, do all that good shit. We could really use the support, and we'll see you next time. Be well.